Welcome back. When Ron Paul was first elected to Congress, Jimmy Carter was president. Inflation was 11% and the Cold War was in full swing. Times have changed, but Paul has been a steadfast champion of small government and individual freedoms. And his 2008 run for president inspired a movement. You know it today as the Tea Party. Ron Paul announced this week that he won't run for re-election from the 14th District of Texas, instead devoting his energies to another run for president. Congressman Paul joins me from Capitol Hill to talk about that decision and, of course, his very colorful career. Congressman, happy to have you on the show today. I want to ask you first, though, why give up your House job?
Well, I didn't want to run two campaigns at one time. You know, I've done it before. It was criticized. I think the criticism is justified. And I think I should concentrate on one campaign, and that's what I'm going to do. And I thought it was time to leave the Congress anyway. And besides, I don't think it's legal under the Constitution to be the president and also to be a member of Congress.
I'm sure you're well aware of this little crisis that's brewing in Washington these days, known as the debt crisis.
Right.
What is your solution here, do you think?
Well, there's no easy solution because it took them about 30 or 40 years to get into this mess. The solution is we have to change our whole attitude about what the role of government ought to be. And in the last 100 years, we've drifted from the original intent of the Constitution, where government was to be limited and was there to protect our liberties. So we have a foreign policy that needs dramatically change. We can't be the policeman of the world. We shouldn't have a government that's dealing with our personal liberties and dealing and treating us the way they do at airports. We should have a different monetary system, and we certainly shouldn't go into deficits. We shouldn't be doing central economic planning and willing to spend all this money that we don't have. So it's a major change that we need, but the major change is coming because the country technically is in bankruptcy.
And what is your answer, though, on the debt ceiling? Do you think it should be raised?
No, absolutely not. I've not voted for any of the spending, so I'm not going to vote to raise the debt limit, and that's only going to encourage them. And the argument for raising it is that it's so debt. Well, you know, they argue that it's going to, you know, be devastating if we don't, and we'll default. But I think the problems that we face if we continue to do what we're doing is much, much worse. And besides, we're currently defaulting constantly. We default when we devalue the currency, and that is why our prices are going up. Although today, Bernanke claimed that inflation is only a couple of percentage points. When you look at the free market economists, they claim that inflation is over 9% according to the CPI that we used to use. So there's still a lot of inflation. That means defaulting on the people, because they're getting paid money that loses its value. If they save money, they lose its value. And people who owe money get to pay back with cheap money. And that's also the way governments usually default on their debt. They devalue the currency. Very, very dangerous, and it eventually ends up very badly with a lot more inflation.
Well, your feelings certainly are well known about the Federal Reserve. And as I said, it was quite entertaining to watch you tangle with Ben Bernanke today. I want to play some of that, and then I want to ask you about it. So let's listen.
Then we also have the Fed to deal with, too. And I see the Fed as a problem because I see so much of this other spending wouldn't have gotten out of hand if we didn't have a monetary system where the system provides the funds. We don't have to be responsible because we can always say, well, it's up to the Fed. You know, if we didn't have the Fed buying up our debt, interest rates would rise and everybody would yell and scream. But you know what it would do? It would put pressure on us here in the Congress to do something about it.
You're mistaken in saying that the Federal Reserve has spent any money. You say $5 trillion. We have lent money. We have purchased securities. That's not buying, that's not dissipating, you know, the money. We've gotten all the money back. As an article over the weekend by Alan Sloan showed, in fact, the Fed has been a major profit center for the U.S. government. We've turned over profits in the last 2 years of $125 billion. So we are not costing any money in terms of budget deficits or anything like that.
So I want to give you the last word here, Congressman, on that little debate there. I mean, you have gone so far as to say that we don't even need the Fed. Why is that?
Well, the Fed creates the financial bubbles, and if you have a financial bubble, you have to have a correction. The correction is the recession and the depression, and then the price inflation, and you have the unemployment. So their purpose is to give us low unemployment and stable prices, and we don't get any of it. So we're not getting much for it. But for him to say they don't spend any money, that's a bit of strained language, because he claims if you buy a security that you're just adding reserves into the system. But where did he get the money? I mean, and he brags about the profits. I'll tell you what, if I had absolute control of the printing press, I bet I could make some profits too. It wouldn't be it wouldn't take a genius to make profits. But to say that technically speaking, he's not spending money like we do in the Congress, but he is printing money and he is buying junk. He buys all the securities that nobody else wanted, and that's how he bailed out the banks and he bailed out corporations. So as far as I'm concerned, in a practical sense, that is spending money that he created out of thin air, and the people suffer. And the point I made during the conference was, in the past 3 years, the economy has not improved, and we've ended up with a $5 trillion increase in the national debt.
So, Congressman, before I let you go, I'm sure you pay attention to the polls, close attention. If you don't become president, now that you've given up your job at the House, what will you do?
Well, first I'm going to concentrate on the campaign, and actually we're pretty optimistic about that compared to 4 years ago. And the one thing that we do know, that when we look at our own polls, is that the support I have is very, very solid. They're not going to go anywhere. The support for other candidates, they jump around. So, but I will continue to do what I've been doing in office or out of office. I've dedicated myself to, defending individual liberty. That's the most important thing. If we have our liberties, we won't have to worry about our prosperity. The prosperity will come. But if you give up our liberties, as we have been, our prosperity dissipates, and that's what's happening. So I'll keep fighting for that, which means sound money, free markets, a sensible foreign policy, and balanced budget, but to concentrate on the principle that every individual deserves their liberties, and free people can take care of themselves much better than anything we can do with the dependency on government and central economic planning.
Well, I know that you've been working hard to change people's minds and change the country, and we wish you the best of luck with that. And when we call you on August 3rd, after the debt ceiling deadline, we hope you'll take the call and come back on the show and talk to us about that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It is about 24 minutes past the hour.